Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. There's been a major shake-up in the IBF rankings, all sorts of comings and goings, including a few fighters that have been dumped, one in particular that it doesn't make any sense, but I'll come to that. Also, Charles Martin surges in the rankings, but will start at number 1. So no change for Kubrat Pulev, who is the IBF mandatory challenger. He'll be facing Anthony Joshua June 20 in the UK. So regardless of the outcome of that fight, he won't remain number 1 for too long. Either he becomes champion or he either drops down on the rankings or out if he loses. But the guy who has surged in this month's top 15 update at number 2, Charles Martin. And yes, there is a number 2 this month. Usually it is represented as a not rated, but Charles Martin beating Gerald Washington February the 22nd on the Wilder Fury undercard. So he takes that spot of number 2 courtesy of winning that eliminator.
I walk this earth like a god.
So at some point, Charles Martin is going to be vying for the mandatory spot. Martin himself has said he expects to be fighting in July, and he believes there will be a final eliminator ordered. So Charles Martin versus who, you might ask? Well, there is a number of options here, and further down, I look at Robert Helenius, who's come into the rankings, and I think if I was PBC, after what happened with Adam Kownacki being upset by Robert Helenius, I would be trying to target a Charles Martin and Robert Helenius final eliminator. I'd be working on the IBF to try get that made. That actually has a lot more sort of prestige with a final eliminator tag on the line there. At number 3, you have Ajit Kabayal. So he's up 1 place this month, and that's courtesy of Adam Kownacki, who was the previous number 3. Dumped altogether, so the IBF ruthless here in that regard. He loses, he is gone altogether, Kownacki. But in terms of Ajit Kabayal, he has a tune-up fight at the end of this month against Marius Wok. That's going to be in Germany, and then hopefully we see Kabayal in the United States on this new deal that he's got with ESPN and Top Rank on a co-promotional basis, along with his existing promoter, SES Boxing. At number 4, you have Alexander Usyk, the former undisputed cruiserweight champion, who is set to face Derek Chisora on May the 23rd. So he's up a couple of places, and later we'll get to Chisora because he's a surprise inclusion in these rankings. So you could say, given he's leapfrogged Andy Ruiz Jr., who's at number 5, perhaps on the basis of his upcoming fight, that is the reason why. And at 5, as I mentioned, Andy Ruiz Jr. No word on who he's going to face next. There was some talk of a potential Adam Kownacki fight, but it looks like, Chris Arreola could be the next guy. Dominic Breazeale has been calling out Andy Ruiz Jr. as well, so maybe Ruiz, who is ranked in a few sanctioning bodies, maybe he will face Breazeale or Arreola. They seem the most likely at this point. He didn't want to fight Luis Ortiz next, said he needed a fight beforehand, so we'll see what happens with Ruiz Jr. Obviously hasn't been in the ring since his loss to Anthony Joshua in December 2019. At number 6, we have a new entrant into the top 15 this month, Robert Helenius. He comes in after his stoppage win over Adam Kownacki. So Robert Helenius, it would seem that the world is his oyster at the moment after that upset win. It opened some doors, and as I mentioned, maybe the PBC will push for a Charles Martin and Robert Helenius final eliminator. Obviously behind the scenes there will be some maneuvering, but in terms of Charles Martin, if it's not Helenius, I guess, Ajit Kabayal, Andy Ruiz Jr., maybe that could happen. Charles Martin, Andy Ruiz Jr. I wouldn't mind that fight. But Helenius, obviously, he's in line for a payday now off the back of that win, no matter what happens or which option and route he decides to take. At number 7, remaining firm is Michael Hunter. No fight lined up at the moment. He has been calling out a number of heavyweights in the division. He's particularly interested in a Joseph Parker fight. Him and his manager have been calling out Parker. No real word from Team Parker if they have interest in that fight, but that one would be a good one. Filip Hrgović at number 8, no change. Joseph Parker, he's actually up 3 spots this month, and that's courtesy of his win over Shaundell Winters in Frisco, Texas on February the 29th. That win was what it was, a tune-up victory, so I guess I'm a little surprised that he's sort of vaulted up 3 places, but yeah, it is what it is. Obviously a bit of maneuvering behind the scenes probably. At number 10, a new entrant and a surprise entrant. Derek Chisora out of nowhere comes into the top 15 and at number 10. So this is a little surprising, but given he's got a fight coming up with Alexander Usyk, and obviously the IBF probably wants to clip that ticket on that pay-per-view in the UK, so I guess it's not altogether surprising, but just a little bit. But it's a sanctioning body, so even though the IBF seems to be the most on the level out of all of them, there still was some funny business that does go on, and you get a little whiff of it and think, yeah, what's really happening behind the scenes? But this is where I want to bring in, so at previously, last month, Gerald Washington had been at number 9. He lost to Charles Martin Gomberger, gone altogether. And at number 10, where Chisora comes in, Alexander Povetkin, gone altogether. So what is that all about? He had a draw with Michael Hunter back in December, but now he is down and out of the rankings altogether. He has a fight coming up with Dillian Whyte. So to me, this is a surprise omission, especially he was coming off a draw, and prior to that, he'd beat Hughie Fury as well. So it's not like he was coming off a loss, and it's not like he was at 14th or 15th and on the cusp of dropping out if someone had a good win and could sort of, leapfrog him. So a little perplexing, I must say. At number 11, and this is surprising for me, Tom Schwartz. He's up a couple of places this month on the basis of what? It's unclear. He currently doesn't have a fight lined up, and he's one of these guys in the WBO and IBF that just seems to hang around, not really doing too much. Obviously, after that Tyson Fury fight, his comeback fight was against a former cruiserweight. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of Tom Schwartz and where he's really going and what he's going to do, because he stepped up to world level, got battered, and seemingly he just wants to fight at a certain level. Can he actually get to top 30 level? Yeah, I'm not convinced. Another inclusion this month, off the back of no activity recently, is Tony Yoka. So he's at number 12. He is set to sign with Top Rank according to reports. He was meant to fight on March 14th, but the pin was pulled on that, and he officially hasn't been announced as being part of the Top Rank stable yet. So whether there's some things behind the scenes in terms of contracts, a few details to be ironed out, smoothed over, or whatever, Tony Yoka is waiting and watching. He was very frustrated on social media that his fight date fell through, and no opponent was announced, and he wasn't officially added to the March 14th card that was going to be in New York, the Shakur Stevenson card. So who knows what's really going on there, but it seemingly not is all right there at the moment. At number 13, Zhili Zhang, he's up one place this month. Number 14, a new inclusion into the rankings, Dempsey McKean, the Australian heavyweight, who just beat Johnny Rice in a last round stoppage on the Gold Coast earlier in March. So this is the second rating that Dempsey McKean has picked up. So he actually, on the line for that was a WBO strap and the IBF Intercontinental title. So courtesy of picking up that strap, that's why he comes in here, because you might have been thinking McKean versus Rice, that's a step up fight for McKean, but in itself, does it get you into the rankings? Probably not, but there was hardware on the line, so that's why he's in there. So rated across two sanctioning bodies now at number 14. And at number 15 is Otto Wallin, the Swedish heavyweight, who is still yet to come back from his loss to Tyson Fury in 2019. And if you caught a recent social media post, see here on screen, he's got an injury that forced him out of a potential fight with Lucas Brown on March the 28th. But the injury that he was reported to have, a minor foot injury, it looks a bit more than minor, doesn't it? See, with his moon boot on. So who knows what's really going on and when he's coming back. But yeah, a lot of movement. So you have 4 guys coming in, 3 guys going out. And the maths, it does add up, because not rated was previously not filled, the number 2 position. But then you have a surprise inclusion in Derek Chisora, a surprise omission in Alexander Povetkin, Adam Kownacki, Gomberger, Robert Helenius comes in, Charles Martin surges all the way to number 2, bearing in mind he was 11th last month. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.